Top five. Top five. Top five. Top five casters. Let's get to it, boys. Destro Lock. This is in no order, by the way. It's generally just top 5 best casters in the game right now, as of patch 8.1.5. My personal opinion, as always, feel free to argue if you really want to. This is just my opinion, and we're all entitled to our own opinions. Getting into it. Top 5 casters, starting out with Destro Lock. We all know why. Like, if you haven't been one-shotted by a Destruction Warlock, you're probably not playing World of Warcraft as of recently. They do a fuck ton of damage. I will throw a non-buffed Chaos Bolt out there. Maybe a little bit buffed just with these dots, but obviously a 40,000 on a, let's see, the cast time on that bad boy, on a 1.8 second cast time, 40,000 without any buffs. Really, really strong, especially in Arena. With cooldowns, you can be hitting anywhere from, I'd say 60,000 to 100,000 if you're really, really geared. You have a lot of defensives as well. You have Demon Armor, which previously increased your armor to the point of a Plate Wearer, which was 39% physical damage reduction, now reduced to 29%, which is about the level of a Mail Wearer. So Shaman, Hunter, I think those are the only 2 classes that wear Mail. Well, fuck. Those are the only 2 classes that wear Mail. So, yeah, we got a little bit of defensives, and then we have Unending Resolve. Obviously reduces damage taken by 40%, grants immunity to silence and interrupt effects. Also Dark Pact / whatever utility you take on this row, which is obviously passive health regen. Burning Rush is just complete garbage, just shouldn't even be in there. And then it's Dark Pact, which is what I take personally. Any other thing that makes Warlocks really, really strong. Fear. Spammable Fear, spammable CC on top of incredible damage right now. On top of decent defensives, which were more overpowered in the last patch. On top of Hellstones. You know, if this isn't enough to make you play Destro Lock, I don't know what is. Pretty much damage I can get off is really, really crazy. I'll try to burst right here. This isn't ideally like how you'd want to burst, / how hard you'd hit, but I popped Maledict just out of basic instincts there. And also, whenever you use your Dark Souls thing, your Maledict's just way more likely to crit. I mean, you'll see here my Chaos Bolts are just hitting for like 80,000, which is pretty normal in PvP. I think the highest Chaos Bolt I've gotten in a PvP setting is, I think 80,000 is about the highest, and I'm getting 100,000s now, which is clearly harder hitting than a, you know, Greater Pyro. That's something I should also point out as well. When you're playing a Destro Lock, your Chaos Bolts have a chance to just, if you get your stacks correctly, through Grimoire Supremacy, which increases the damage of your Chaos Bolt. Along with certain traits, you can hit harder than a Greater Pyro on a target. So, in other words, you can hit... with someone who has, I'd say, 200,000 health, a Greater Pyro is hitting them for, let's do quick math, about 65,000. You can hit 80,000 Chaos Bolts on a half-second cast time of a Greater Pyro. So that's, I don't know, just think of it like that. You pretty much cast Greater Pyros on half the cast timer. Way easier to, I guess, get the cast off itself, and if they don't interrupt your fear, you use a Chaos Bolt. If they interrupt Chaos Bolt, you use a fear. It's kind of that kind of general rotation. Another thing that makes Warlock so powerful is that the spammable CC, and is when I was playing against a Destro Lock, they use fear, and then they just follow it up with a Chaos Bolt, and if you interrupt fear, then they just cast Chaos Bolt. If you interrupt a Chaos Bolt, I mean, they're locked out of Flame and Shadow spells, so I guess that's what you're going for, but I don't know, they just have constant pressure, and, I mean, they're really good against melees right now, which are, like, the only class that really fuck casters. So, I don't know, if you've seen Destro Lock, you know that it's really strong right now. So, yeah, that's the first class, obviously. Now, moving on to the second, which isn't big surprise, really. It's a Fire Mage. And here is the next caster class. It's a Fire Mage. Big shocker. Ever since they introduced Greater Pyro, Fire Mages have been on the radar of PvPers. It more came into effect during BFA instead of Legion, but during 8.1 and 8.1.5, Fire Mages are, I'd say, a necessity in Rogue Mage teams, or just Mage Arena teams in general. Obviously 35% max health damage. Really, really, really strong. The only thing that's bad about it is the 4-second cast time. However, you can use this to just constantly apply pressure to the enemy team. If you're casting a Greater Pyro, if you actually complete that cast, you're going to chunk someone for 35% of their max health, which really, really adds up fast in Arena. If they do interrupt Greater Pyro, another thing that makes Fire Mage so strong is that you have 2 spell schools you can cast off. If you do get interrupted in your Fire spell school, which is your damage spell school, you have Arcane with Spell Steal, Counterspell, Polymorph, and then you have Frost with Ice Block and Ring of Frost, which is spec'd into. Outside of that, I mean, obviously it's just the incredible amount of damage they can get off. And their general burst in general. Their general burst is just fucking deadly. I'll do it right here. Okay, so I'd say in PvP your Greater Pyro is probably going to be hitting for like 50,000, but let's get the kind of burst off here. So you're going to cast a Greater Pyro. You're going to use Combustion. You're going to throw a Meteor down there, and then I know you're supposed to like somehow get a Hot Streak proc before, but then yeah, generally you're going to want to use Fireball though when it comes to burst. But the burst is generally Combustion, throw a Meteor down, get your instant Pyroblast, use it, and then Pyroblast, and then just get as many procs as possible going into that. And into that little burst that I did, which was just pretty much 3 buttons, I did 18,000 damage, or 18,000 DPS, 325,000 damage in that little window. And this doesn't really go down much in PvP, especially in Arena. You've seen Fire Mages. There's double Fire Mage teams out there where they just completely and utterly destroy people just because of that constant pressure and that constant crowd control. That if you don't focus one Fire Mage, the other Fire Mage is casting a Greater Pyro at your face and 35% of your health is going to be gone. Meanwhile, you're just getting CC'd, Dragon's Breath, Ring of Frost, Counterspelled, Maledicted, damage over time, all that shit. Yeah, that's why Fire Mage is really strong. Another thing that makes them really strong, especially right now, is against Druids with Kleptomania. Resto Druids right now, in my opinion, and a lot of the healers' opinions, Resto Druid's really strong. It's probably the best healer in Arena right now. Kleptomania, obviously taken pretty often whenever you're going against a Druid in Arena. Pretty much spell steals all of the Druids' heal over time effects, so it's really, really good when they use that one honor talent that applies all their heal over times. You can use this, just completely negate that honor talent that they do, and take all their hots and heal yourself into that as well. Yeah. That's Fire Mage. You obviously have a lot of utility, and you also have like a second chance of life with, whatever it is, Cauterize, which has been in the game for a little bit. You use Temporal Shield right before you use Cauterize and take all the damage you take before your Cauterize would normally proc, and then you obviously proc the Cauterize, you go back to like 40% health, whatever it is, 35% of your health, and then it goes down. You'll gain all of that health back. I've seen people pop Cauterize with Temporal Shield while they're taking all the damage that pops the Cauterize, and they'll go from 100 health to no health, pops Cauterize, Temporal Shield procs, and then they're back to 100% health. So it's definitely something, and it's a weird playstyle, admittedly, but it's something that if you get in the habit of, you can really, really, I don't want to say exploit, but you can take advantage of it really, really heavily. So, yeah, on to the next class. So the next caster class, it's Balance Druid. And we all know, if you know me, you know Balance Druid is one of my favorite classes ever since I started playing it back in Legion. I think the general playstyle that it has currently is really, really fun. It's engaging that you have to actually keep track of your resource bar as a caster, which normally most casters don't even do. Obviously the playstyle is throw your 2 dots up that have been in the game since Cataclysm. I think Sunfire came in Cataclysm. Moonfire's been in the game since Vanilla, but your 2 dots obviously you can apply to anyone at any time. I'd say it's your main 2 buttons outside of, I guess, Solar Wrath, Lunar, and Star Surge, but the reason to like Boomy, you have a lot of self-heals, you're very mobile. You have Cat Form, Bear Form, which if used with certain talents, Celestial Guardian, reduces damage you take by 10% on top of the armor you get in Bear Form, which puts my armor at 48% damage reduction, which is 50%, which is higher than Fury Warriors, actually. More on track towards, like, kind of the actual tank armor level. Ooh, that was a nice one. Receive 20% increased healing as well while you're in this. So, something to really, I guess, keep an eye out if you're running, I guess, Balance Druid. And the reason you need that extra heals, I've seen Resto Sham, Balance Druid, Shadow Priest, very deadly comp. From what I remember, just obviously the damage over time. It's just kind of a rot comp anyway, but damage over time, plus their deadly burst. Shadow Priest and Balance Druid both have deadly burst, so I suppose that's what we'll get into next is the burst. So the burst I do as a Balance Druid is you pop your Eclipse, and then your Eclipse obviously generates some Astral Power now. So then you obviously use your Eclipse, you use your Full Moons or whatever row you're taking for that talent. You throw out all your Star Surges, and then you pretty much just try to get as much damage off / keep your dots up. in this kind of Eclipse window. And then you want to get as many Star Surges off in this as possible, because it gives you increased haste, and also gives you increased damage. That's kind of it. I think Balanced Druid Burst is a little bit less than other classes, but one of the main things about Balanced Druid that's really, really strong, and I'll show you guys here, is that throughout an arena, you'll just be generating astral power. And it's not something, I guess, the teammate really thinks of, because their astral power bar becomes so common to the eye that you don't really pay attention to it when you're playing against a Balanced Druid. At least I don't. So let's see, you're going against a Balanced Druid in arena. He has full astral power. What's he going to do with this full astral power? This is what makes Druid so strong as well. Just looking at the tooltip, Star Surge, launch a Star Surge, dealing 20,000 nature damage, also grants you lunar and solar empowerment. So, damage over time, Moonfire and Sunfire just constant pressure, both dealing about 30,000 damage over 20 seconds. That will add up over an arena. On top of that, not even counting your 2 castable abilities, Solar Wrath and Lunar Strike, you have Star Surge. On top of your damage over times, let's see, so 15,000, another 15,000 over 30 seconds, and then we use 2 Star Surges. So the first one hit for 40,000, the second one hit for 20,000. So just the Star Surges and Moonfire itself, it's hitting for about 100,000 over 20 seconds. That's all I really need to say, I think. On top of that, I'd say their mobility is really annoying to deal with. Their hybrid kind of off-heals can be annoying to deal with as well in Arena. It is... I think in Legion you weren't able to use Regrowth and Boomy Form. I could be wrong. I thought you could use Healing Touch and Boomy Form, but not Regrowth. But now you can use Regrowth and Boomy Form, so that comes in handy a lot in Arena. Also in just Battlegrounds in general. However, sometimes you're not going to be really taking Restoration Affinity, so you're not going to have Swift Mend, and you're going to be taking Guardian Affinity most times in Arena, just for that reduced damage, Frenzied Regen, and then you're going to be taking it with Celestial Guardian for that extra damage decrease and the extra healing received. Obviously, another mention here is Cyclone. Cyclone pretty much just a spammable crowd control. You can use it on any target. It pretty much makes it so no heals can come in, no damage goes out. It's really good against low health targets whenever the healer has no other choice. Or you have no other choice but to Cyclone the target because he's going to get heals no matter what. This comes in handy a lot. Iron Feather armor, not as good as it used to be. It used to increase armor by a lot more, now it's just not that good. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning here is Faerie Swarm and Thorns. Thorns pretty much just does a ton of damage to melees that are hitting you. Really, really useful for Battlegrounds, not as useful for Arena because most of the time people just switch off of you. The other thing that I think is really useful is Faerie Swarm, pretty much is a disarm and a movement speed slower for 5 seconds. Really good against any melee that decides to focus you, especially if you're not in the Guardian Affinity. It comes in handy a lot against Rogues, Demon Hunters, literally any melee. However, most times you're not going to really be taking this in Arena. In Arena, your setup's probably going to look like Celestial Guardian, Cyclone, and then Moon Kenora. Just because Moon Kenora, if you don't know what it is, it just gives you 12% increased spell crit chance, which is really, really broken in my opinion. And then obviously brings a lot of value to Balanced Druid, especially in rated Battlegrounds. But that's a different video. This is more focused on Arena, but I guess can be applied to normal Battlegrounds and rated Battlegrounds as well. Yeah, that's Guardian Druid. The one complaint not Guardian, this is Balanced Druid. The one complaint I have about Balanced Druid is that Starfall seems like it does nothing now. I guess I'll generate enough astral power to show how much damage Starfall does. It does 10,000 damage over 8 seconds, which is pretty much nothing. They removed the... So, in Legion, Star Surge... I don't know why I'm even bringing this up, because it's not relevant anymore, but... In Legion, Starfall used to give I think it was like 50% damage increase to your damage over time abilities. So, let's say you throw these 2 dots up, both dealing 2,000 or 1,000 every 1.8 seconds. If you threw Starfall on the target, it would do that initial Starfall damage that you're seeing right there. And it would also apply a debuff that increases your damage over time effect. I would like to see that reintroduced, even if it's just like reduced value of that increased damage over time effect, because it was really strong. It was really strong, and that's why they just like dead removed it, because they realized it was just too powerful. But I would like to see it back in the game. I don't find myself using Starfall as much as I should, or as much as I'd like to. Unless it's a really, really, like, dense area, then, I mean, it can be useful. And the one thing to mention also is that Sunfire, unlike Moonfire, if you use Sunfire on a target, we'll just use it in this to kind of show you guys. If you use it in a big grouped up area, it'll apply Sunfire to everyone. I'm not sure if people know this or not. I didn't learn it till, like, maybe a patch after playing Balanced Druid. I kind of paid attention to it, but, again, really good for Battlegrounds and rated Battlegrounds, but... Alright, next caster, boys. I know some of you will like this, some of you will not like it. It's Ellie. There's really not many casters in the game that are... There's not a lot of casters to I guess, compete for the top 5 spot, because Demonology, Affliction, pretty much hot garbage unless you use the right trait with Affliction. Frost and Arcane can compete with Fire, but they're obviously just not as viable. / they're not going to have the same effect as, I guess, a Fire Mage. And with certain comps, I mean, I've seen Arcane can be good. There is a rank 1 Arcane Mage, Volts. That, I mean, he just spell steals all day, but if that's what the playstyle is, and that's what it is. Anyway, Elemental. It's strong, man. The only thing that makes this viable is Lightning Lasso. Came in last patch, there was a huge shit show about it. I think they nerfed the value down about 6 to 8%. So now it's 40% max health over 5 seconds. I think it used to be 46 or 48% over 5 seconds. I could be wrong. But this ability is pretty much the bread and butter of any Elemental Shaman right now. Ideally, you want to get the full effect of it. I can't even use it on that raid boss because it's a raid boss, but ideally you want to get the full effect of it, so you want to get the full 5 seconds off so it does the full 40% of the max health over the 5 seconds. If you don't, then you're going to be hitting someone for... Even if you do hit them for like 2 seconds, it's still like 20% of their max health, which is really, really good, honestly, but ideally you want the whole 5 seconds. Other things that make Elemental really strong are the fact that you can take 20% reduced damage in Ghost Wolf form if you stand in it long enough. There we go. Damage taken reduced by 20%, movement speed increased by 20%. Surge of Power is just an interesting playstyle thing that I enjoy a lot. I think it adds a lot of variability to the Elemental rotation. And obviously, let's go over the bursts, guys. Let's go over the reason why we play Ellie. I guess I should throw on a Elemental weapon, shouldn't I? There we go. So, the reason you play Ellie, and it has really, really good burst if you use it correctly. Fire Elemental can do a decent amount of damage. And your burst as an Ellie is pretty much using Earthshock, getting the Surge of Power proc, using your cooldowns and Totem of Wrath, and then just using Lightning Bolt on someone. And that Lightning Bolt hits 6 times in 2 casts for 60,000 damage. At least 60,000 damage, but... Yeah, I mean, you can see it right there on the scrolling text if you didn't. We can also look at the combat log. Your Lightning Bolt hit 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. There's another one, 10,000, and then there should be one more for 10,000. Somewhere around there, but that's the burst. And then on top of that Lightning Bolt damage, you have your Lightning Lasso, which you can follow up. You can follow your Lightning Bolt damage with a Lightning Lasso. So 60,000 on top of 40% of the target's max health. With whatever partner you're doing arenas with or battlegrounds with, it's pretty fucking deadly, and it's probably gonna kill a healer. That's the whole reason people play Ellie. I don't think there's really any other reason people play Ellie. It's kind of like Fire Mage. Like, the only reason people play Fire Mage is for that Greater Pyro that you can spam. But the only reason people play Ellie are for Stormkeeper and Lightning Lasso. Just general complaints, or general ideas. You can use Ice Fury. I've wanted to use Ice Fury. I think they buffed it a little bit, so... We'll actually try it out here, because I haven't actually played with this town since Legion. Pearl's Frost increases the damage of your next Frost Shocks, the thing you want to keep track of. It might be useful again. It does 8,000 damage. You can use that 4 times, so 8,000, 8,000. What is that, 27,000? Because I hit for 8,500. Something like that. Oh man, I was a little off. Anyway, for Ice Fury, if you want to take it, you can. Personally, I take Surge of Power all the time. You will need to take Surge of Power if you do want to run that kind of burst build, or the burst rotation that I did just show you with Stormkeeper and Surge of Power. Nature's Guardian, just to heal. Master of Elements can be used. It's just something I don't really like to think about, but it just increases your damage. And, yeah, there's really not much else to talk about. Elemental. I really think the only reason people play this is for the Lightning Lasso damage and the Stormkeeper burst. Obviously, you have Grounding Totem again, which can ground Chaos Bolts, Greater Pyros, really any of those hard casts that are pretty common in Arena these days. On top of that, I guess your Lightning Lasso will help prevent those hard casts as well. You also have Sky Fury Totem. I think that's the only other thing worth mentioning. Increases crit chance, critical effect of damage, and healing spells. So pretty much if you use this with like a Destro Lock, they're going to be hitting for 20% increased damage on that Chaos Bolt. So Ellie, Destro Lock, keep an eye out for it. And obviously Counter-Strike. I think that's the only last thing worth mentioning. Counter-Strike, it's really good, not for Arena, because people know to just kill it and get rid of all that damage, but for Battlegrounds. People don't focus Counter-Strikes on Battlegrounds for some reason, even I don't. And I've used Counter-Strike in Battlegrounds. If you do get, like, max uptime on Counter-Strike Totem in big fights, it will be your top damage. I'm not kidding. It will be the top damage if it's just not killed. That's Ellie. So Shadow Priest is the last caster class that I'd say is top 5 for this class, or patch, sorry. Reasons why it's overpowered / really, really strong right now. A lot of utility, a lot of survivability. You do 50% of the healing, 50% of damage done from your Vampiric Touch is healed back. So 17,000, half of that's like, I don't know, 8,500, something like that. Anytime you buy a Vampiric Touch to someone, if you apply this in Arena, that's 3 people with Vampiric Touch, or 2. Anywhere from 16,000 to 20,000 healing every 18 seconds, I think, is the duration. 21 seconds, sorry. And obviously, this is really good for Battlegrounds as well, because with all the targets you have Vampiric Touch on, you're going to be getting health back. And obviously, if you're getting health back, it's going to be harder for targets to kill you if you're constantly getting healed. The only downfall of this is obviously maintaining Vampiric Touch in everyone, which is pretty hard to do when you're getting trained by about 3 melee. However, this is where a lot of your other defensives come into play, such as Psychic Scream, Fierce People, Psychic Core, stuns someone, Disperse, reduces damage you take by 75%, increases your movement speed, prevents your insanity from draining, and also heals you for 50% of your max health. We also have Vampiric Embrace, causing you to heal a nearby ally for 85% of any single target spell damage you do. Just pretty much heals in general. We also have Greater Fade. Fade out, removing all threat, increases your move speed, and causing most melee range and spells to miss you. Lasts 4 seconds or until you take a hostile action. So you can use this and then just spam 2 Shadow Ments, and it'll usually give you about, like, I'd say about 40,000 health in, like, that small window, which is really, really good. And on top of this, you already have Power Word Shield, which, if taken with the shitty Honor Talent, can be, I guess, used a little bit more, but really, I don't think Void Shield's really that as good as it used to be, so it is something you do just press on yourself over time, because it does absorb damage. It does absorb 15,000 damage, so it's just something to keep an eye out. But again, what makes Shadow Priest so strong is just their utility is amazing. Absolutely amazing. You're pretty much a stun machine. With the right comp, just your CC itself. If you want to CC a healer, there's a 4-second silence right there. There's an 8-second fear right here. And then there's a 4-second stun out of that. And then this isn't even counting anyone you arena with, which have crowd control on top of that. And then this is obviously mixed with your damage over time. And this isn't even counting your damage, because your damage is crazy too. I don't know. Shadow Priest is something. So let's just dot everything. Let's dot 3 things, and then see how much damage it does. And obviously you're going to get a lot of Mind Blast procs. And the more people you have dotted, the more damage you're going to do, obviously, which is why Shadow Priest is, I'd say it's considered one of the strongest classes for RPGs right now. Obviously, you get a lot of Instant Blast Mind procs, Instant Cast Mind procs, Mind Blast procs, wow. So here's the burst, if you want to really see it. It's nothing too special, but... So, let's say you got your burst, you got your Void Torrent, which is your Void Eruption, which is your big burst cooldown. So, reset data. And here's the burst. You want to use Shadow Fiend just because, and I'm doing this just to see, I guess, how much damage I do in a burst. And all this you can do pretty much, like, you don't need to hardcast for a lot of your burst as a Shadow Priest. You can pretty much just walk around. The only thing you will have to cast is Mind Blast and Mind Flay. And then, I guess, Mind Control if you really want to, which is another CC you can add on top of your CC chain. But even there, I mean, the burst isn't as high as all those other classes, but you're a lot more mobile and a lot more sustaining compared to a lot of other classes. For a lot of the other caster classes, I guess I should emphasize on. You'll notice one thing I didn't use is Void Torrent. It's something you have to feel out. It's not really useful if you just get interrupted on it, but obviously it does a shit ton of damage. 30,000 damage over 4 seconds, also known as 10,000 DPS pretty much. Generates Insanity as well. It will do more damage in Void Form, because in Void Form you are doing that extra, I think it's 10% shadow damage. It could be a little bit more. I'll take a look. 20% increased damage with reduced cooldown and increased haste. So that's something to keep an eye out. We also have 15% damage reduction flatline / baseline now. That's nice. I enjoy that. Thank you, Blizz. Going over under talents as well, which is pretty good for, you know, Shadow Priest. This is one of my favorites. It's something that's not really maxed, or, you know, min-maxed in arenas, rated battlegrounds, anything. It's something I want to master, or just practice a lot, but potentially you have the potential to have 24% increased haste on your target, on your character, sorry, and then you steal haste from other people. So let's say you steal haste from 2 healers, they're down 12% haste each, meanwhile you're up 24% haste, which is absolutely crazy. That is a Bloodlust. It's a Bloodlust missing 6%. I don't know, it's something that excites me, and it's something that it's really hard to, I guess, get that 24% haste off, because when you take 12% haste from someone, they really feel it and they just die, to be honest. They just die whenever you steal that haste. And you do have, the only bad thing about this is that you have to maintain that haste buff. So I'm not sure if I can steal haste from this. I don't think I'll be able to. Okay, so a 15-second window. Haste stolen, haste reduced by 3%, stolen by me, so I have 3% haste. You can steal this 4 times on a target. And I imagine this, I don't know why this isn't used in Arena. Maybe it's just because you just have to line of sight to get that haste back, but, you know. Right now I have 12% increased haste. If I sucked another guy, so if I sucked another guy, I'd have 42% haste, on top of whatever Void Form haste I'd have if I went into Void Form. So I don't know, you have the potential for a lot of haste. On top of that, you have Greater Fade, which I just talked about, and Void Origins, which pretty much makes your Void Eruption instant cast. Another worthwhile talent is Siphoned. Pretty much reduces healing someone takes by 50%. Also drains their health by 1% every second. Every 0.7 seconds, sorry. For 12 seconds. So 12 seconds, doing about 12% of the target's max health, on top of that 50% healing and 50% movement speed reduction. So, a lot of utility from Shadow Priest. You're pretty, I don't want to say you're a healer that does damage, you're like a more damagey Disc Priest with less heals and a lot more utility, I'd say is the best description. But that's the top 5 caster classes for 8.1.5. If you want to see Melee again, let me know. Not much has changed. The 8.1 top 5 Melee is going to be the same for 8.1.5, but if you really want me to review, then I will do so. Yeah, thanks for watching. If you guys liked it, thumbs up, subscribe, description, bell thing. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and until next time.